Hello. Michelle Baker-Jones is an integrative psychotherapeutic counsellor based in London. She's been a member of the Imperial College's psychedelic research team since 2015 and one of the leading figures in the recent trials to understand whether or not psilocybin, i.e. magic mushrooms, can be used to treat depression. Now, my connection to Michelle is actually a musical one, which you'll find out when you listen to this conversation. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I was, by the number of coincidences and synchronicity that evolved out of this amazing conversation that I've had with her, and in her study of connectedness, including actually an instrument that can measure our connectedness. So please join me in this very, very super connected conversation.
The feelings coming through your fingertips. Don't slide for more. Don't slide for more.
How are you?
I'm good, actually. I get to be at home today rather than work, which is brilliant. So I would be screening someone, but we don't have any screenings today. So I'm quite relieved to be at home. It means I can go out and sell.
Are you happy to just go straight into it, or did you want to ask anything first?
No, yeah, just go in and see where we go.
Great. All right. Well, look, first of all, it's just great to meet you sort of in person.
Still virtual.
kind of. I knew that when I sent out those, invitations to join that video, I was really wondering who was going to do the So record by Peter Gabriel, because it's always, anybody that I've ever met that loves that record, they always know something about Carl Jung.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I remember saying to Kate when you sent the video in, I said, "Oh, look! Someone's already said." She said, "Oh, yeah, that's." I think she called you Midge, actually.
That's right. Yes, I am known by many as Midge too.
But as soon as she said that you were a counsellor, I thought, yeah, counsellor. That's Peter Gabriel. So
yeah,
I don't know why that is.
Well, Games Without Frontiers was a classic song of my youth, so I really love that song. So Peter Gabriel's always been there. I was a bit of a Genesis fan as well, so Peter Gabriel has always kind of been there in the periphery for me. So yeah, and we had the album, so I was just like, I'm Perfect. Quite happy to go along with Peter Gabriel.
Well, look, thanks so much for coming to chat, which is it's kind of what I'm doing. I mean, the one connecting factor between everybody that I have conversations with on this is that they've mostly all have learned to do something so expertly well that they normally have letters after their name or something, unlike me, who never went to university. So it's me trying to fill in the missing bits of things that I'm fascinated with, and I know that a lot of your work is connected to psychedelia and that
psychedelics for sure,
and consciousness exploration. But I just wanted to pick up on one thing, Michelle, that was on the sort of literature that you sent me, and it said there was a connectedness care program.
Yes.
The word connectedness, and I thought, oh, I wonder what that is.
Well, this is something that's in a pilot phase that is related to the Synthesis Institute. And so Ros Watts and myself, who've basically worked on the psilocybin trials together in tandem. And then we created psychedelic integration groups because we recognize that the trials in and of themselves aren't sufficient to, in terms of helping people through their depression. So it's kind of in its pilot phase of thinking about what will be needed to really help people deal with their mental health issues. And Ros did qualitative analysis after the first Silodep trial, and we developed a therapy model which is called the ACE therapy model, and it's acceptance, which is really about acceptance of painful feelings, which leads to greater connection, which is connection to self, connection to others, connection to the universe. And then E is for embodiment. So how do you embody that, or how do you integrate that into your life? So I think one of the great revelations was that connectedness is very much the antidote, or can be one of the main antidotes to depression. Connectedness, community. So Roz is tinkering with what a connectedness program might be like as a container for a psychedelic experience. And so it's kind of following her work into connectedness being really key to help people deal with depression or any mental health issues, really. You know, I mean, it's a societal thing, really. I mean, Johann Hari's book on lost connections, I think, really points to that too.
I just heard that title for the first time. That's going to be on my list now. Lost Connections. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, a book by Johann Hari, which is all about depression. So consequently, and as a result of COVID, interestingly, myself and Roz, because the trial was kind of ended sort of a bit dramatically, we couldn't finish with the final participants. Some of them didn't have their second dosing. We set up like a weekly group, which wasn't really kind of part of the trial. And in this group, we could just see everyone supporting everyone, and a bit like that liminal space of a psychedelic integration group. You know, if we step back as experts and just let the people support each other, you can kind of see that healing naturally. And because that kind of happened as a result of COVID, a bit of an accident, I think it was sort of the spark that kind of helped Roz to see, well, what can we do in groups, you know, in terms of creating community, bringing people together, letting people heal themselves through that connection. So I mean, COVID, I think perhaps created the perfect storm for the birthing of seeing how the group and the psychedelic experience and connection all together might you know, provide a good container.
Oddly, isn't it? COVID has been a great catalyst for many things in positive ways as well. Just for anybody that might be listening or watching, because this is both, isn't it? Video and podcast. I know when you talk about the psychedelic experience and the work that you do as a counsellor, I sort of understand that. Kate explained it to me. I didn't a year and a half ago. I didn't know anything about breaking convention, or that, which I guess, you know, a culture and community that explores that. Just so anybody who doesn't know, doesn't sort of just assume that it's some kind of fancy way of taking
psychedelics.
Yeah. Do you want to just give a kind of potted what that part of your work is about?
Yeah. So the two trials that I've worked on were exploring psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, as a treatment for depression. And the way it works is very much, you know, thorough screening. Participants come onto the trial, and the experience, I suppose, is in a therapeutic container. And for me, that's really important. It feels like the therapy is catalyzed through the psychedelic experience. We know set and setting are really crucial for a psychedelic experience. So the set and setting, even though it's in a research institution, a CRF, we have, you know, all the bohemia of a spa with salt lamps and subdued lighting, and lots of nature pictures on the wall. So it's very much more of a spa, but within a medical setting, which is very unusual. And then so we get to know our participants, you know, we get to know their psychological history, a lot about, you know, so this rapport, this kind of therapeutic rapport, has to be established pretty quickly. And then on the day of the dosing, so there's a lot of preparation, which involves kind of psycho preparation about what to expect, creating trust between us and the participant, And a lot of, I suppose, it would sort of encouragement or priming to some degree to go towards one's suffering and pain, and not, basically saying you're coming here to try and get to the roots of your depression rather than looking at the
So is it
symptoms.
some trauma work as well?
Yeah, to some degree, people who've been suffering with depression for a very long time have probably been suppressing and avoiding and not really feeling.
Mm.
So, what we're encouraging them to do is to move towards their feeling, go towards anything that might be challenging, but knowing that we're there as a supportive container, holding their hands quite literally if they need that. So, we kind of foster an attitude of bravery and curiosity within our participants, and an openness to explore whatever arises.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. And is that a sort of is it, I wouldn't call it a service, but is it something that anybody can sort of get involved
We're not
in? Or
well at the
just
moment.
just
Yeah,
people that
it's
are
yeah, it's just clinical trials because because of the legal status of psychedelics, we
mm,
have to demonstrate their therapeutic potential. And then
mm,
once that happens, then they can potentially be legalized, because we've been through all this before in the 60s, and the legal guillotine came down because psychedelics were considered dangerous and having
yeah,
no therapeutic potential, whereas it was clear that they really did have. But it was about politics then, people deciding not to go and fight in the Vietnam War, and Timothy Leary was considered, one of the most dangerous men. so, so we're
yeah.
just picking up really from there, do kind of replicating that research, hopefully more rigorously and to a higher caliber. But the actual experience is 6 hours of music on a headphone with eye shades, and it's a very internal
Wow.
experience. So it's very much going in into
With an ingestion of psilocybin. Is that
yeah,
right?
psilocybin
Yeah.
capsules. So they have to be standardized so that
Mm.
it's a medical version of that. And we are just there. So the two psychedelic guides, a male and a female, or sometimes it can be two females, or, I think that's something that can be explored in who it needs to be. So that, that we facilitate people of
Yeah.
color and, yeah, all that kind of thing.
It
So,
sounds it sounds so fascinating, and actually like the kind of thing that I'd probably love to do, uh,
mm,
but completely different. I only had one psychedelic experience in my life, and
right.
it was with mushrooms.
Yeah.
But I was very young, too young probably. I was 15.
Oh, that is quite young. But
It
then in certain tribes they do initiate, don't they, children into psychedelics, but it's within, within a culture and within a
was,
tribe. So it's a very different.
yeah, it wasn't like that for me. I mean, it was pretty idyllic, though. I was in Ireland with a school friend, with his family, and they live near a fairy fort. So we were on a very kind of Celtic,
Oh, very nice.
mythical journey. At which
Lovely.
point he then said, "Let's pick some mushrooms to take back to London,"
Yeah.
and I think we picked about 1,000,
Wow.
and then thought we'd sit up on the hill and try some. So we just had, I think it was like 50. They were fresh each, and nothing happened. And it kept we can't well, let's take some more until we'd eaten them all after about
Oh
50,
my goodness. Right.
assuming that they were weak and
Oh
no good.
dear.
And nothing happened. We walked through the sort of magical fairy forest and went home, went to bed, and then within an hour, the next 24 hours was the
Oh
next
my
day.
goodness.
So
Right.
probably why I never did psychedelics ever again. It was wonderful experience, but I do
Was it
sort
too
of
much, do you think? Was it overwhelming?
I yeah, it was so powerful, and I sort of
Yeah.
wonder I have wondered ever since. I'll never know what life might have been like without that. I mean, you can
Mm.
say that about any experience, can't
Yeah, sure.
but as such for such a young mind,
Mm.
yeah, I do wonder if that how much of it has informed who I became. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
But you
sure.
must look at all of those sort of what's happened. Do you look at what's happening to people that partake in your trials in as a group as well as individually?
Um, yeah, I mean, there will be, I think, a documentary coming out soon following the story of the trial.
Mm,
But yeah, no, so some of the participants from the trial will be in this connectedness program. So I think that the pilot trial. So in a way, it's very fortunate that we're getting to be alongside. So I do a facilitation group and meet every bi-weekly with Greg Donaldson, and we
Mm,
are going alongside with those people. So we're getting to see, just how much care, how much community will really be necessary to help shift, some people who've been with depression for 10 or 15 years. So
yeah.
um, yes, that is happening alongside. So we're very fortunate in that respect. And I think, I suppose my fear is that if it becomes highly medicalized, will that care be taken away? Like so many kind of, so many interventions or whatever happens when things become really commercialized. So I think it's really important, if we can, is to keep to really be conscious of how much care is needed and support, because I think, that's super important. And the connection again, I think, which is why I agreed to do this podcast. The timing is quite funny.
About connection. Well, yeah, and let me explain a little bit about that, because it was this is to do with a project which is an album and a film,
Mm,
and it's how Kate and I met, actually, and it's kind of to do with the debate between humanity in its natural form and technology, and
okay.
what that is doing to connections. So it's it's um it's interesting talking to you about. I mean, nature is a huge part of the work you're doing, isn't it?
Yes. Well, in fact, the final Roses Connectedness program is all based around the Celtic tree calendar, and
Oh my God!
reconnecting with nature is a
Are you talking
crucial.
about Oggerman, the Beth Louise Moon?
I don't know what that means, but she probably would know. But
Yeah, how extraordinary!
she's using that as a basis for her workshops to take each tree and to go into that in depth. So, really encouraging a reconnecting to the natural rhythms as a source of
Yeah.
connection as well. And there's been
I'm gonna get up 1 second. I'm gonna grab something, which is this isn't the original copy, but I just said the Celtic Tree Oracle.
Okay.
That
Awesome.
is, yeah, and all the basically it's a system of divination that Druids used.
Yes.
Um, and all the months, each month has a different
Agree. Yes.
tree that it's
Yeah.
connected to, but I've never heard anybody really talk about it lately.
It's being used, and in fact, one of the facilitators is Philip Cargom, who used to be the head of the Druids. So he's joined our team, which
Yeah.
is lovely. And we have two eco
Oh my God.
psychotherapists on the team. So yeah, it is really using, I suppose, thinking about the container, it's therapy and it's nature. I suppose those are the key elements of,
Yeah.
trying to help people reconnect to the natural rhythms, because like you say, we're so divorced from them with technology. So yeah, it sounds like we're on a similar page but doing different things with it.
Yeah, and Philip Cargom is somebody that he initiated me into the order
Oh,
when I was 13.
okay, yeah, so
So
yeah.
I was living in Spain, on the near the Costa del Sol with my mum, and obsessed with everything Celtic,
Oh, okay.
Grail,
Sounds like the
mystery,
perfect program for you.
Druid. Yeah, it does that. And but I joined the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids at that time, and did my courses remotely. So it would have been Philip that sent the letters from the
Oh,
UK.
okay. Yeah.
Every month I used to get these things, which I've still got. And yeah, that's again a really super synchronous mention.
Mhm, mhm.
And I only rediscovered him since I realized that he was doing sort of Facebook,
Tea
not
with the Druid. Yeah,
the
I've watched.
Druid. And I just thought, it's one thing in 1988 living in the middle of the mountains in Spain, just not having any connection to the UK, and then suddenly
Yeah.
wherever you are in the world, you can have tea with a Druid. So, yeah, it's progress.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And
Mm.
what's your feeling about connection in the way that we're just talking about, which is, well, apart from that synchronicities, but just very
Mm,
organic human mycelic connection. And then the connection that we also know, which is on social media and
mm,
emails and phones and apps that keep coming out, which are
yeah.
crying for our
Mm,
attention. How do
mm.
they go? Do you have they're two different things, or are they trying to meet each other? What do you feel about that?
Well, well, I suppose I feel the social media connection can be useful and interesting, but yeah, it doesn't really beat real life. You know, as an integrational relational therapist, for me, it's all about relationship. It's
Mm,
about real connection, and for me, a lot of healing is you know, I think our wounds are created in relationship, and the way we heal is in relationship. So you know, I have had to be doing therapy on Zoom, but it's so different to doing it, you know, face to face, being in the room, all that embodiment, all those, you know, micro gestures, all that stuff is lost.
mm.
So yeah, I think
Does your work as a therapist become a lot harder then when you're, because I know that, because in the therapy that I've been in and that I've read about, there's a lot of work that you do by being a few meters away from
yeah, exactly. It's very different because
their
people
reaction.
yeah, people are not they're they're less connected basically. The screen, you know, sometimes I have to do a body scan to try and get people to drop in and to be more connected with me in the space, because you're kind of making up for all that visceral embodied, I don't know, the relational field, I would say that's not really there so much through the screen.
Has
um
that been hard this last year?
it has been hard, but yeah, I mean, because I've just started working on the DMT trial, so I'm actually seeing people in real life. So that's really been a saving grace for me. So I'm not on Zoom all the time, and I've
Mm.
really appreciated going to work and seeing
Yeah.
people in real life and working with them. Um, because yeah, I think the propensity for burnout just increases
Mm.
because especially you don't have the transitional time between meetings. You know, if you're going from Zoom to Zoom,
Yeah.
none of that, just kind of spacing out, you know, going for a walk, arriving somewhere, all that transitional time is taken away. And in a way, we've become a bit more robotic and disconnected ourselves from ourselves, you know.
Yeah. Screens
Um,
are very, it's very hard to discipline yourself when you're on screens.
mm,
I mean, and this is the only reason I'm wearing these, by the way, is because I'm screened out of my mind for the last couple of weeks. Um, delightfully though, because it's been talking to people, you know, and like
yeah.
this, but yeah, I feel it in the evening, and it strikes me that there is I mean, I know the work you do isn't necessarily always to do with people that have addiction, uh,
Mm,
even though there's a drug that can be addictive sometimes, I suppose, involved in it.
yeah.
But what what do you think about addiction to, I don't know, Facebook, or addiction to
Mm,
Instagram, and addiction to where people are using it, and obviously it's a reward based app, a lot of it,
yes.
which
Yeah.
we all know now was based on the one-armed bandit kind of
I
gambling.
know, yeah, it's a bit insidious, isn't it? And not good because yeah, it's just that reward. Yeah, it is the same as a drug. It's addictive, and it's not really. Yeah, I suppose what we're looking for is connection and intimacy, something meaningful, and what we're getting is just this shallow likes and ticks that don't really mean anything, you know, and people get hooked into that feeling really low if they're not getting, I don't know, 10 likes on their Instagram picture or
Mm.
whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's insidious, and you know, was it the social media documentary? I can't remember what it was called. The documentary.
Social dilemma.
That's it, the Social Dilemma documentary. That was quite a horrifying watch to, you
Yeah.
know, all the people who designed, you know, the Silicon Valley, or, you know, a lot of the social media, that they were sort of conscious of what they were doing, but didn't
Mm.
really think about the implications, you know, on us all for being hooked into social media. So
Does
Yeah.
that come up at all with the people that you're working with who suffer with depression? Does that
I don't,
cause
yeah, I don't know whether it's so much. Yeah, that's, I would say that's more addiction. So it's not something that comes up so much with depression, I don't think. But with depression, it is a lack of connection, and obviously, COVID for people who've been living alone has amplified that. So even though people maybe have been through the trial, they've come out into a landscape of COVID where if they live alone, they haven't been able to see people. So
Mm,
it's sort of maybe stopped a lot of the progress in its tracks, because whereas, they've had these experiences that have been opening and
yeah,
helping them feel more connected, then they came into a society, that's like one big psychedelic experience itself, that we're all having to, go inward and really reflect on what our meanings are.
mm,
um, and for some people it's been hugely challenging, whether that's financially or being in a household where people don't actually get on with each other. So it's been a bit like a dark night of the soul, I think, COVID, for a lot of us. Some people have found meaning, but for a lot of people everything's been thrown up in the air, and I think some people
yeah.
have come out okay, but a lot of people have really struggled.
Yeah, I was thinking about it yesterday, and across, not to generalize too much, but across the board, it seems like COVID or the pandemic has consolidated everything. So where families were not in a good place, it's really sort of
Yes.
pounding it. Um, People that were in the midst of I don't know, exploring ideas and being creative, have done more. I know
Yeah.
a lot of friends, and certainly I have. The government, that had that much power,
Power. Clamp down, take all
they've
the power.
consolidated that. It's
I
everyone's
know. Scary. Yeah, it is
sort of
scary.
endless. Does that worry you about, in our country anyway, about, obviously the work that you're doing is very much about bringing people together and finding connection and empathy,
And
uh,
healing.
and
Yeah.
healing in groups of people, and
Mhm.
being in a group is something that is rightfully so, throughout the hardest times of the pandemic. But they've just taken out another 6 months of powers if they want to stop people getting together.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it is, yeah, very disconcerting, really. And something that we have to be conscious of, that, our desire to be out of lockdown or to feel less trapped and want more freedom, that, yeah, we might just sit back and not realize what's been passed, but what rules have been passed by, because, yeah, to some degree, it's not looking into what the powers that be are doing, that can get us into trouble before we've signed up to, I suppose, COVID passports, and what the implications of that, and how much control are we handing over, in order, we're kind of, um yeah, on the back foot, really, sort of a bit at their mercy. So, I suppose, like the right to protest, and how that all went horribly wrong, that's really important, that we have those rights, for
Yeah.
sure.
And I'm sure that many people within the government, clearly not the frontliners, but will also need to protest certain things. It's just
Yeah.
such a weird thing to take away. But it strikes me that you're working in a sort of, um, in an optimistic way with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking for a way to heal people that are
Yeah.
depressed. So, what is optimistic about that side of our lives
Mm,
at the moment? Where is the optimism in connecting and being together and understanding each other and having really authentic time
connections.
that's not
Yeah.
online? Where's the optimism in for that?
So, well, I
You?
suppose in the work that I'm doing, one thing about it that it is a slight paradigm shift in terms of thinking about healing, not as, a pill that's prescribed from the doctor where we manage symptoms, but with psychedelics, there's very much this idea of getting to the root causes of our depression, our anxiety, whatever it is, And in that process, we frame on the DMT trial, the psilocybin trial, that there's this process of accessing your inner healer, that homeostatic inner healing process. So for me, whether it's traditional therapy or psychedelic assisted therapy, there's something about trying to help people discover their own healing potential, and that's in the way they live their lives. That is through greater connection, that is through community, and rather than sort of medicating and dealing with symptoms that just make them functional so that they can work in a job that they probably don't really like, it's like helping them to find their spark, where's their passion, what gets them up in the morning. So it is connecting to oneself to find the spark, your passion, so that you're more connected to others and to nature, to the universe. So for me, that the paradigm is one about really being alive. It's like the I suppose the the idea is to help people live a more fulfilled life, a more meaningful life, one that aligns with their values, helping them to get in touch with their values, and to live a life that's more in alignment. And that, maybe slow and steadily means perhaps overhauling what society tells us is important, which is just working in a job to earn money to pay rent. That narrative is a bit tired, and it's not really serving us. So for me, it's about creating new narratives as well as different ways of healing. So for me, there is a lot of optimism in what we're doing, but we are fighting the mainstream storytellers. So we have to create a more nuanced story, one that's more interesting
across the board, isn't there?
Mm.
As you were saying that about changing the narrative and the way we think that we're supposed to live our lives, it made me wonder if, I know you've been doing this work for a long time, but in the year of 2020 and up until now as well, do you find minds being a bit more open towards the suggestion of a new
Yeah.
narrative that you're exploring?
Well, I think, taking shops away and classic consumerism.
That's what I
People,
meant. Yeah,
yeah, everyone,
a lot of people have woken up to
yeah.
um, loving being at home with their 3-year-old daughter or something.
Mm,
They wouldn't have been able to do if they've been going to work, and all
yeah.
kinds of there's been more connection online, but there's also been more real connection, and it's,
Mm.
like I said, it's just compounding everything. So I just wondered if you'd experienced other people kind of being a bit more receptive to new ideas about how we heal ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think working from home and not this whole idea that we have to work 9 to 5 in and of itself is an abomination.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like, do your work, do it with a passion, enjoy your work, that I hope there's a way in which, people can find meaningful purpose that resonates with them, but also recognize that the relationships in your life are super important. Those connections are, what help you feel alive, fostering those, maintaining those. And I suppose maybe that there's a middle ground where, we work and we contribute to society, but hopefully doing it in ways that align with our values. And seeing so many people in the park, I live near Richmond Park, and thinking, are they all going to go back to the shops? That'd be sad, won't it, if that's what they do, because that's what they know, and buy stuff they don't need to make them feel happy, but it doesn't really.
I
Uh,
sort of secretly hope that many of us don't go back to any of those normal things, in the
yeah.
same way that if you're a recovering drug addict and you've managed to get through, a significant long period of time without whatever your drug was, and then
Mm.
when you're confronted with it, you're kind of going to go, oh, gosh, no.
It's not really doing it for me anymore.
No, not don't got other things going on now. I
Yeah.
sort of hope that will be the reaction to some of the ways that we've been living in society uh,
Mm.
for so long. That changed, and I feel optimistic about that. I just wonder if do you have a I don't know the history of pill taking, or I don't know when that started. You mentioned a few minutes back about prescribing medicines all the time for when there's something
Mm.
wrong with you, and that clearly hasn't been going on forever. That's is it a 20th century sort of
I
invention?
assume, yeah, I see. Was it 1950s, 60s? I don't know when antidepressants were invented, but I suppose for some people they're incredibly important and useful. But I think it's just
Of
the
course.
overuse of them has been really the problem, and then people being finding it really incredibly difficult to withdraw from antidepressants.
And the
And
prescribed narrative that if there's
yeah,
something wrong with you, the first thing you should do is
yeah.
find a pill to see if it will fix
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing about psychedelics is often the experience people have, which is really reparative, is they recognize that they're not broken. And I suppose that there's a
it.
very
Yeah.
different narrative, is that fundamentally they're not broken. And it's that idea that you're broken and you need to be fixed. And that here's a pill to do it, that I think it's incredibly dangerous story, and kind of thinking, oh, I'm not broken, I'm actually fine as I am, but how do I sustain that connection with that belief and that feeling inside me,
Is it fair to say you're working towards a future where that might be possible, or it might be an established alternative?
well, I suppose that's what I hope. It might be an epic battle to get there, but yeah, I hope to contribute a little verse or a little line to that story, indeed.
Mm. Well, I think it's a really a beautiful story, and I think it's
Mm.
a really noble task that you've taken on.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, I could talk and listen to everything you're saying forever. I think it's so
Yeah.
fascinating, and hopefully, some of the people that might watch this and listen to it, who didn't know about that kind of practice,
Yeah. Well, check it out.
will
One
check.
thing that I should say actually before I go, which I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
is right,
please.
is that my dear friend Rosalind Watts has created the Watts connectedness scale, which will be used, in trials and studies, which basically is a scale designed to rate your level of connectedness, and that's to yourself, to others, and the universe.
Wow, what is that? Is that is
It's
it an
like
actual thing or no?
Yeah, it's an actual scale. So it's like a set of questions that, you could ask people, say, before a treatment and then after a treatment, to see whether they are more connected. So it's something that grew out of the psilocybin trial. And yeah, so that will be published soon. And that will be something that will be used to measure people's degree of connectedness.
That is so cool. That's so
Mhm.
cool. I'll have to send you like an early version of the film so you
I
can.
do. Yes.
I mean, really, the film's about disconnection
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the trauma that people in families go through with all of that. But I'm really, what a great note to end on. There's an actual scale to
Yeah.
measure connectedness.
Which has grown out of this work,
Yes.
really. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God.
Like that.
Well, I'll be hassling you much more, I think, for more information about
Yeah,
it.
sure. Well, it's been lovely to meet you again virtually.
You too. Yeah. Let's hope that we can do something for real
Yes,
together
yes,
this summer when
sure.
we're told we're
We're
meant
all
to.
allowed out.
Yeah. As soon as we can get out in the sunshine, I really look forward to meeting you in the same space.
Brilliant. Okay, lovely to meet you, Jim. Take care. Bye.